Today's conference is a subject that is actually extremely close to MetLife's heart. Consumer protection is something that is a key strategic pillar of our strategy, and I will develop a little bit more around that. I think this conference is extremely important, and it's evidenced by the distinguished groups of guests that are present with us here today in Bucharest. It's also very timely because, as we all know, this is a work in progress, and the EU legislation is already well advanced, and this is moving very much so in the right direction, and quite quickly, although, as Mr. Bernardino said, this will take time, but we will get there, and we will get there together as an industry, as the regulatory bodies, and as countries. And this is something that we really look forward towards. Here I just want to start my comments on a few remarks around two misconceptions about insurance. One is what I would like to call the protection gap, and the second one is the perception gap. So in terms of protection gap, a recent study from Swiss Re showed that there is actually worldwide an $86 trillion protection gap between needs of the customers and availabilities of insurance products. So, of which, concerned in this forum, 13 trillion in Europe alone. So we can see how important that, that gap is between availability and access. So the other item is the perception gap. And, you know, and most of us here in the room, insurance professionals, have heard this before. Insurance is sold and is not bought, right? Increasingly, our customers are demanding products. And as one of the keynote speakers mentioned this morning, they are requesting products that they can understand. They are requesting products that are simple. They are requesting products that they can access through different distribution channels and through different means. But let's not be misled that they don't want insurance products, that insurance companies need still to push insurance products. Insurance companies need to push insurance products that are too complicated, as a speaker said this morning, for some of the board members of the insurance companies themselves to understand. That's what insurance company needs to push. But if our products are simple, easy to use, with easy access, they don't need to be pushed. And the customers are looking for that. And we have done a lot of research within MetLife in different countries that have proven these points. Customers are increasingly becoming sophisticated, and we really encourage, as I mentioned before, a EU-wide policy, a single market policy that will align all these elements. And you know, we've been, as I mentioned in the beginning, we've been in business for 150 years. So our customers, we build a relationship with our customers for the long term. We cannot afford building relationship with the customers for the short term. This is our business. We're here to stay, we're here to grow, and we need to grow with our customers. So however we onboard our customers with their first policies within the company, this is how we will be perceived for the long term through the generations to go. So this is extremely important to us. Let me go to the next slide here and just highlight some consumer protection trends. So, you know, we've discussed this in the morning, and as we heard from Mr. Bernardino, negotiations on the EU level on product marketing, distribution are already very well underway. From various aspects, the EU legislation concerning the marketing and distribution of insurance products, I just wanted to focus here, given the short amount of time, on two aspects. One is the transparency, and the other one, the product documentation, which I believe are two of the most important strategic pillars of consumer protection. So we all appreciate that consumer protection policy is a very delicate balancing act between customer needs and customer protection, as we highlighted in the slides before. And you know, the negotiation within the EU, and I've highlighted that this is, you know, it's not as easy as it seems. And there are different perspectives, and not only you know, from the market with the regulators, but also within the market and within the regulators. And we are in an industry that is complicated, and we all know that. And there is no silver bullet to fix this situation. You know, I think that as the policy moves along and as the legislation gets finalized, it's very important that you know, rules are calibrated to the needs of the customers, because this is ultimately what we're all striving for. And again, as I mentioned, it will be a balancing act with the customer demands on one side and the customer protection on the other side. And I think it's very important that we take really this balancing act very carefully. So first, let's go to transparency. So we all agree that more transparency and simplification, market access, as I mentioned, building the trust is very, very important. And we're all in the same boat. But the devil is obviously in the details. And the devil, you know, lays in the details, and remuneration is one part that is tedious, because, you know, disclosing the full source of remuneration to consumers is appropriate in order to minimize the conflicts of interest, but disclosing sometimes exact amounts of remuneration, you know, may not really add a value to the customers. The other item that was mentioned this morning was the level playing field. And the public disclosure of all detailed remuneration arrangements may shut down or actually diminish the power of certain distribution channels to actually provide the access of insurance products to customers. So this is the balancing act that we have to be very careful of, is let's not shut down the access of our products to the markets, but at the same time, let's protect the customer while doing so. Because we have seen, it's clear, 13 trillion protection gap is huge. And if we are too stringent on certain items of the protection agenda, then what we will limit is the access of insurance products to the customers. The second part on product documentation. So this is something that is actually very, very important. And there, the clarity of the product documentation is extremely important to our industry. And you know, we all agree that nobody or very few customers can understand the current type of product documentation that they receive, especially on insurance products. So the regulatory trend that we have to balance is more information versus better information. And this is, again, goes to the product simplification and goes also to what we're trying to achieve. It's not a question of quantity of information that we will provide the customers, but rather a question of the quality of the information that we will provide to the customers. And too much documentation may actually scare away the customers. We all know this saying that, you know, confused minds don't make decisions. So if customers are confused by the amount of information and by the, you know, the difficulty to be able to compare apples to apples, then we're creating the reverse effect. And we're creating no decision, no purchase of insurance, and therefore a lack of protection gap increasing as we move forward. we all know that ultimately the underlying issue is that consumers are not enough engaged in financial products in general. And in many cases, this is because they just don't understand it. Our products are just too complicated for the average consumer. So it is our responsibility as an industry, together with the support of the regulatory bodies, it is our responsibilities together to simplify our products. And even if you don't simplify the products itself, because there are some parts of the products that are inherently complicated. I mean, you know, there are just so few actuaries in this world that can understand the actual, you know, but we need to simplify the jargon. We need to simplify the general terms and conditions. We need to simplify what's the package, that the end product that the customer receives. Because when you get an iPhone, you get an iPhone, you get a product. When you get an insurance policy, you get a stack of paper. And that stack of paper, you don't understand it. It's not about liking it or not liking it. It's just, you start, it's legal jargon that nobody can relate to, nobody can understand. And this is the real issue of documentation and simplification. And this is an example of what we are doing. I don't know if it's that visible, but what we are doing at MetLife exactly in that sense. And we have started this endeavor about 2 years ago, where we have put customer centricity in the center of our strategic core elements of our roadmap. And customer centricity for us started with simplifying terms and conditions. So we all know that we are bound by regulation to have the actual jargon. But what we did is that we are putting simplification notes with the help of our brand ambassador Snoopy that actually extracts pieces of the product's terms and conditions and make them in simple, legible and understandable terms. So we take a paragraph, as you can see on the top, I don't know if it's very visible, but we take a paragraph of the general condition, and then we put the explanation in normal standard language. So we meet with the requirements of the regulation to have the legal jargon, but we also bring to life what's in there exactly and what does that really mean for the consumer at the end of the day. So, to summarize, a few takeaways: the insurance misconceptions that we mentioned at the beginning. Consumers need insurance, and they are more and more demanding and sophisticated. Customers should be at the center of the mind of our final rules will be calibrated, and the nature of transparency is key. And sometimes simple information, and I would say not even sometimes, most often simple information is much better than more information. And then the harmonization and flexibility, we really commend the EU for attempting to harmonizing the rules. And as I mentioned, we are a very big proponent of the single market, and as Mr. Bernardino knows very well, you know, we believe that we are in this together. And we believe that together we will achieve the best results for a better level playing field, and most importantly, a fairer market for the consumers. And to close, I think this is a delicate balancing act, as I mentioned, and we have to take all these considerations into account in order to ultimately reach our objectives that were very clearly stated by our guest speakers and by Mr. Bernardino. So with that, thank you very much for your time and for your attention.